Leslie Minix-Wolf, Product Marketing Manager at ScienceLogic. Today, we're going to talk about digital transformation and the steps that IT can take to transform itself. Joining me today is Dennis Drogseth, Vice President at Enterprise Management Associates. Dennis built the network management practice at EMA, and he's worked into a more cross-domain and integrated operations and service management practice over the last 20 years that he's been at EMA. Thanks for joining us today, Dennis.
Leslie, thank you so much for having me. Delighted to be here.
Well, so why don't we get started? You know, Dennis, you've written a lot lately about digital transformation and how it starts with an integrated approach, specifically combining IT operations and IT service management. And even though it's top priority for many organizations, both to integrate their operations both internally and within the business, few have really achieved it. Can you explain or elaborate on some of the reasons why?
We did some research over the last few years, and we asked people, are you focused on digital transformation? Are you focused on IT transformation? What's the relationship? Then as perceived by IT stakeholders and the IT leaders, they saw inaccurate or incomplete data as a big factor blocking them. We asked business stakeholders about what was really challenging them. They looked back at warring silos and warring tools, which tied right back into inaccurate and incomplete data. And so if you really look at what's going on with digital, data is so central to it, getting the right data together so the right stakeholders can make unified decisions in a way that's cohesive, and that's a core investment to move forward with digital transformation.
So the fact that people are recognizing that data is central to digital transformation and IT transformation, what are some of the approaches or techniques that organizations should be looking at that would help them get a better handle on these warring silos and the incomplete or inaccurate data that they have?
Yeah, that's a great question, Leslie, and we could do a whole hour on it, but we'll do just a minute or two, because getting the right data together and then enabling things from it is like, you know, big step one, big step two. So one thing I'd like to point out on the data issue, when we looked at biggest roadblocks for using advanced analytic technologies, data quality issues was right up there as number two. Number one was the products aren't there yet. But we also looked at, we have trouble extracting data, and we're not used to sharing data sources. So data was really a big factor in just how do you leverage analytics. But what do you do to bring data together? Now, one thing that I think is really key, and by the way, I think ScienceLogic gets an A+ for this one, monitoring tools and other tool source integrations. When we looked across different deployments, what their hopes were was to bring as many as 15 different monitoring and other sources together into a common data environment. I won't say pure data lake because it can vary, but unifying, making data relevant from critical sources that are there, and then of course covering all the different domains, database, network systems, cloud, desktop. Security is key. Getting end user experience from applications and private cloud, all those things can be key. And then what kinds of data? Events. Events could be infrastructure. They could come from apps. They could come from the business side, security. We get high marks for Internet of Things already. Time series and then transaction data. That comes in many multiple flavors. Business transaction insights, performance purely, end user experience. Flow, logs, agent-based data, bytecode instrumentation, configuration-related data can be really key. Topology can be really key. And so you move into the world of CMDB and other areas as well.
So you talk a lot about, you know, all these different varieties of data coming from all these different sources and bringing it together. But, you know, one of the things that you know, ScienceLogic feels is really necessary is, in addition to bringing all that data together, it's about being able to provide some context to it. So, you know, I think of a simple example of, you know, when you're driving down the road, having a dashboard that tells you you're going 70 miles an hour okay, that's fine, but it would be really helpful if you had the context. Are you driving on a highway or are you driving through a school zone? And you really need to be slowing down because it's really not safe in the school zone versus the highway. So providing some kind of context is really essential to having all that information. Can you comment a little bit about that and the types of capabilities that you could leverage and those that obviously ScienceLogic is looking at in order to provide that kind of context?
Sure. Context is everything. We do consulting work at times. Not a big part of what we do, but we go around the world and work in every place from the Pacific Rim. Right now we're working in Barbados on a CMDB deployment. And I would say there's something common when you look at advances in analytics in the operations side and a configuration management database histories, which is how do you fail in these, well, there are many ways to fail, but one sure way to fail is to say, gee, we're just going to put a lot of data in one place and then we'll figure out what to do with it. If you don't have context and you don't have effective ways for analyzing and use case focused capabilities to make all the data do what you need it to do, you're definitely set up to start failing. So there is that funny similarity. So what is context? Let's talk about a few things. Just getting discovery right. What's out there? Where is it? We see that the average IT organization is using, if on the enterprise side, the large IT, about 15 different discovery tools. And that's primarily for just asset and inventory. That can take, if you're doing an audit, as long as 30 hours of just data reconciliation for preparation, just for the inventory side, not for the license piece. On the monitoring side, we've seen in one mid-tier company, I talked to them, they had 300 different monitoring tool sets globally. Every different data center had their own. So you need a solution that can unify all this, make it coherent, and then provide context. And the other piece of context I'd mention is dependency insights, commonly called application dependency insights. And these can be infrastructure to application, infrastructure to infrastructure, application to application, and then getting into non-virtualized to virtualized, or all the interdependencies involved with cloud. You really want to get all those contexts, and the benefits are huge. Context is key. With that context, you can take that data and do performance, change. You can even look at asset. You can look at cloud migration. You can look at capacity. It really empowers the analytic investments.
That's really great, Dennis, because I think that one of the things that we've really focused on for a long time is our ability to understand how infrastructure works together, and we are at a point now where we're extending that capability to look from the infrastructure to the applications, and then from the applications amongst those applications that are making up a business service. So we're seeing that the value of providing that context to understand how infrastructure supports the applications and the applications support the business services, and having that relationship data or topology data to provide that context is really key. So you mentioned earlier the importance of getting an integrated approach. What are some of the ways that you see moving forward once you have this contextualized data? How can organizations within IT, whether it's IT ops, SecOps, or DevOps, how can they capitalize on that contextualized data?
I'd like to go back to the integration story as we're moving into the whole story of ops and then IT service management. And that is an area that I usually research and see a huge upside in value. And so I'm going to connect the dots first on context. The next piece of context, and then I want to move into analytics on top of that. The next piece of context, really, when you have that handshake, you've got real-time insights into dependencies. You have a great way of making what seems to be impossible work, which is a real-time CMDB. And we see use cases for configuration management database, or CMS, ranging from data center migration to financial optimization to security and compliance audits to performance to asset management, and change impact. But we also see that most IT organizations spend an average of 12 hours a week, or multiply that out, 624 hours a year, just trying to reconcile data because they don't have a vehicle to keep their CMDB current. And that, of course, speaks strongly to the ScienceLogic capabilities with IT service management integration, ServiceNow, et cetera. That really makes it a powerful statement. Once you have all that context, and I think that really context should come as a priority, then you're ready to make your advanced analytics work well. And what should advanced analytics do? If it's really going to embrace everything we spoke about, it should be cross-domain, like the data we talked about, application, database, et cetera, network, and including business outcomes. It needs to get many different sources, so it needs that data to be right to use it. And then it needs to be versatile in its analytics with machine learning, advanced correlation, anomaly detection, et cetera. Some of the benefits we've seen: 80% reduction in mean time to repair, more effective ways of working across all of IT, better IT to business alignment, better use of integrating performance, change, and capacity decisions, integrating with DevOps, integrating SecOps, Toolset consolidation, in some cases as large as 10 to 1. And all of this is directly relevant to digital transformation because it helps to transform IT.
Wow, that's great. Those are some good stats, Dennis. I really appreciate that. Yeah, we've actually had a number of customers of ours who've really benefited from, using ScienceLogic to integrate their data, provide context, and as you mentioned a minute ago, integrate with ServiceNow or other service desks to synchronize the information from the real-time monitoring environment with their CMDB. And that has then furthered their ability to automate more of the functions that they've traditionally had to do manually in the past. Just as an example, one of our customers has achieved at least $11 million in savings just by being able to automate processes around to the collection of the data, getting additional diagnostic information and attaching it to incidents and speeding up the whole process associated with creating and updating the tickets. So it can have huge financial benefits in addition to some process improvements that IT itself can achieve. Well, thank you very much, Dennis. I appreciate your taking the time to join us today, and hope that this has provided some insights for those of you who are listening. Thanks again, Dennis.
Thank you, Leslie.